Hi, everyone. I'm Oliver Basner. I'm your host of the Business of Calgary podcast powered by Sonic Coaching. And I'm pretty excited. We've actually got somebody I've known for a number of years here sitting with me that I'm going to be talking to today. He's the president of award winning Calgary home builder, Cedarglen Homes, Howard Tse. Welcome, Howard.
Hi, Oliver.
Glad to have you here. So
Thanks for having me.
that's awesome. So, you and I have known each other for a long time. So I might ask a few questions I don't normally ask, but I know you're okay with that. So, You know, I know that you did not start out thinking you were going to be the CEO of Cedar Glen. So tell us about that story. Like, how did you end up in the top job in the company?
That's right. Yeah, so I started at Cedarglen Homes as IT technical support. So the story goes if your computer needed to be plugged in, or you couldn't print, or your mouse didn't work, I was your guy. So that's where I started, and it evolved into systems manager, where I delve a little more into some of the operations and process work with some of the other teams.
Right.
Eventually evolving to purchasing manager for Cedar Glen Homes, getting in on the operations side, and it was supposed to be an interim job. I think of it as sort of like a hockey team when they say, okay, we fired the coach and we need an interim coach.
Yeah.
Can you step in for a few months? And I said, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but if you have faith in me, then I'll give it a shot. And Scott Haggins, who was our president at the time, said, you'll be okay, Howard. You did the process analysis, you know the backbone of it. You can hold it together for a few months for me and I'll find a replacement. Well, after a few months, I went back to Scott and said, hey, how's that search going for a replacement? He says, well, it looks like you're doing a good job. You want to keep the job? and home building is such a fun industry, and I was captivated right from the get-go that I said, yeah, you know what? I really enjoy this new scenery. I get to meet a lot of great people. Building houses is just one of the funnest jobs that I could ever imagine. And so I said, yeah. And from there, eventually, he came to me and said, Howard, I'm retiring. It's time for you to step up. And I wondered what he meant. He says, you have a year. I said, a year for what? He says, you have a year.
So you didn't even know?
Well, you go through your performance reviews annually, and Scott and I had a relationship where we could pretty much talk about anything.
Right.
And the one year he said to me, listen, I want you to go away and think about what you want for your future. And don't be afraid to ask for my job. His job was never on my radar. But I came back and I said, well, I'd be interested. I don't know if I'm the right guy. So when the time came, he said, you have a year to get ready. I said, okay, I know what you mean. But I also wasn't sure if I was the right guy.
Right.
So I asked him to make me a promise. In that year, we'll start sort of mentoring, transitioning. But I always left him a note. I said, if during this year, at some time you decide that I'm not the right guy, totally cool. I want the right guy in this seat for the company. If I'm not the right guy, you go find the right guy. And I'll be more than happy to stay with the company and fill the role that you need me to. So that was about, I guess, 12 or 13 years ago now.
And you're still here, so something worked out.
I'm still here. I am still here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And no regrets, it sounds like.
No regrets. It's been so fun. One of the things that Scott told me early in my career is, he shared with me why he loved the home building industry so much was, he said some of the best relationships he's made in his life came out of the home building industry. And I can say very much the same. I have some very precious relationships that I've found and built over the years that I would not have if not for our industry.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, I heard you say that, there was some really positive words there that, you're going to be okay when you first sort of got thrown into the position. And, do you take that forward with your people in terms of giving them the opportunities and, do you let them know they're going to be okay? Or how's that sort of, have you paid that forward in any way?
Well, one of the things that he said to me alongside "you'll be okay" is just make sure you can look at yourself in the mirror. And that's one thing that I share with our leadership team and people growing in our company. It's about doing the right thing, being good people, and good things will happen.
That's a great way to put it. Absolutely. I have a question for you because I know you've got the IT background, but I also know you still love tech and you love, you love playing with AI and, like I said, we know each other. And so I know that you're leveraging right now, you're starting to leverage AI quite a bit at Cedarglen, in all the different areas. Do you think it's important for organizations to start doing that? Like, how critical is this? Because I don't think everybody's there yet. They're thinking about it, but they haven't started. And how do they start? Where do you suggest they even start?
Well, so two-part question there is the first answer is it needs to start today, yesterday. It needs to start now. This conversation on AI, what to do. It's unquestionable that there is value there. How it's applied to your company and where, that's the question. In terms of what problems do you need to solve or want to solve
Right.
through AI, and how can it assist you, and what role is it going to play? How do you get started? One of the best ways to get started is to play. Have fun with it. Play with it in your personal life. Ask it silly questions. Learn what it can do. Build confidence in your prompts, and really test, how it could assist you in daily life, whether personal or work. And when you play, you start to imagine, wait a minute, what if I applied this to this work process, or if I could do this here, what would that look like? But I think play is a phenomenal way to get started.
And I know you've used it to play, so give us a quick example of that trip to Japan.
Yeah, so we, as families, we often go on these trips and they're great experiences. And one of the challenges that we have is we have great pictures and we share it with families and friends verbally. But if I went back to some of our trips a few years later, I find it hard, even for myself, to remember what was that day like? What did we do? What did we experience? Right. So I used AI on our trip in Japan. It was a 2-week trip, and every morning I'd wake up and talk to my AI agent and share with my AI agent what we did yesterday, what my experiences were, and any travel tips that I learned along the way. And after 14 days, I came back and I asked it to compile it into a journal. So suddenly I had this 14-day travel blog or journal from our trip that I can keep as a memory of our experience. What have I done with that? I've added some pictures to it from our trip, and it's become a document that I've shared with friends that are going to Japan. I've shared with family that says, how was that trip? I said, you know what? How about you read about it?
And here's some pictures to go with it, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Oh, great story. So if people want to play, that's where they can start, right?
Right.
Their next trip or vacation
Sure.
or weekend away. Let's talk about the business for a minute. I know you're an award-winning home builder. Cedarglen's won more than one award over the years. And, how do you differentiate yourself from the competitors?
You really want to know?
I want to know.
Okay.
Without giving away all the trade secrets, because they might be listening.
And honestly, it's easier said than done. Aside from our product differentiation of being able to modify, customize, and personalize, when it comes to people and the experience we deliver, it's about being easy to do business with. Now, quite often when we think about that, it quickly defaults to Cedarglen home buyer, homeowner, customer relationships. But it goes further than that. It extends to our trade partners, our developer partners, and other vendors that we have in our ecosystem. One of the most important parts of being easy to do business with that we reinforce with our team quite regularly is being easy to do business with each other.
Right.
Right? If we can't do that with each other, how do we then go into the world and live that? If we don't practice with each other being easy to do business with, how do we go out and live easy to do business with? So I would say that's a big differentiator for us.
Love that, actually. Like, taking it internal first, practicing there, and then being easy to do business with the customer. Nice. Excellent. Now, you've been there, more than a couple decades now. And, you've seen a lot. I mean, there's the good times, there's the challenging times. Like, how do you keep the team motivated? Because again, we're talking about tariffs, we're talking about potential recession, everything that's going on. The world's moving at a rapid pace. How do you keep people motivated when it doesn't look good and that's doom and gloom in the media and all those things are going on around you? How do you keep them focused?
One of the foundations to our company culture is something called Crucial Conversations. It's a book. I don't know if I could plug it here, but it's a great book that it is so important to our company that when an individual is onboarded into our company, not only do they receive their new phone number, email address, they also receive the Crucial Conversations book. What that book does for us, it gives us a language and a framework to use in having difficult conversations. So when we come back to talking about changes in market and the realities of the experience that everyone's having, what do we do with Crucial Conversations? Well, we use concepts out of there, such as making sure we speak to the facts, and we're being transparent. That we acknowledge the feelings of uncertainty or fear that staff are having. Break it down to stories in terms of why do they have that fear, and finally break it down to the facts. What are the actual facts that they're working with? We can, and I won't say reframe, because that kind of gives a notion of I'm trying to maybe tell a story that's not there. But we'll frame the facts in a way that it is transparent to what does this really mean for you as our staff member, and what does this really mean for our company, and what are we doing about it, right? So, we have had, we live in Alberta, and everyone's seen the reality of the last decade or so in Alberta, and we've had some difficult conversations with our staff to make sure that they understand that we know what's going on, and that we're being truthful with them, and that we're using facts to back that up.
I like that. And so it doesn't matter what position you're hiring for, everybody gets the Crucial Conversations book.
That's right.
Excellent. So it's part of the culture, really.
It is. Yeah, it gives us a language to use in the company, and the best analogy I can use is, I don't know if people remember the movie with Ben Stiller. It's the sequel to Meet the Parents. It's Meet the Fockers. Right?
I remember
and
it, yeah.
Every time Robert De Niro goes a little sideways, his wife kind of leans over and says, "Muskrat." Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a language that that they, between them, determine that that's a call to reality. In our world at Cedarglen, having Crucial Conversations gives us language to say, "Hey, Oliver," and I know it sounds awkward, but I'll say this to you. Oliver, is that a fact, or is that your story? Right? It gives us very pure language to communicate with each other, to cut right down to, and it's okay, Oliver. Let me hear your story, right? And then we can get down to the facts. Right? I'm not discounting your story, but we recognize that there's a story and a fact, and it becomes our language where we can move the relationship and the conversation forward.
And of course, we all have stories, right? We
do.
all make them up in our heads, right?
Yeah, we sure do.
I really like that. Is that a fact or is that a story?
Yeah.
Great advice. I know you went through a significant health challenge a little while ago,
Yeah.
and so your team had to step up. So, and then pretty much run the company while you
Mm-hmm.
were out of commission for a few months. And so, how important is it to surround yourself with the right team? But even more so, Howard, you've surrounded yourself with a great team. You speak highly of them. I've met them.
Yeah.
How do you find those people
How do you find them?
or attract them?
Track
Or
them, keep them.
yeah,
I think they're around you. I think it's identifying them and keeping them is probably the strategy. Um, and part of that is finding people that, you know, that can be counted on, are accountable, have same culture, all the alignment type stuff. But I think the tipping point or what takes us to the next level is the way we care for each other. In business, it's very unusual for a company to use the word love, right?
right.
I can honestly say that, I have used the word love in our organization. And what that means is I care for the individuals, but also it's reciprocated. We care for each other and we look after each other. And that's what I feel levels us up as a team, that it's beyond our skills, beyond our professional abilities. It's that next piece of what will we do for each other.
Right. And I'm guessing you felt not only that the business was taken care of while you were away for that period of time, but you probably felt loved and cared for. They probably checked in on you. They probably made sure you were okay.
Yeah, they kept me as connected or as disconnected as they felt appropriate. But what they did for me was give me the space to focus on, my recovery, and
Right.
and that was great. We talk regularly, and I never felt like the business was ever in harm's way or that I needed to rush to get back. They gave me space, and everyone stepped up.
And for our listeners, he's not joking when he says disconnected, because this is Howard, who was in the hospital, who was, wanted his assistant to come and read the emails for him, right? So,
Yeah.
he didn't want to be disconnected. I remember that. I know giving back to the community is really important as part of your values and Cedarglen's values. So maybe talk a little bit about that. Is it important for businesses to be involved in their community and give back? And I know you've done that in multiple big ways already.
Yeah, it's important for companies to give back. It's we find success in a city or a community, and it's important for us to reciprocate and share that success with those around us in those communities. Some of the ways we like to give back are, there are great organizations in Calgary, and there are some that have specific needs along the way, and we like to find those little niches and help meet those needs that aren't being met through conventional means.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about one of your favorite ways that you've given back.
One of my favorite ways that we've given
Because you've done
back.
some pretty cool things over the years.
Let's see. One of my favorite ways was Aspen Family Services had this building down by the Saddle Dome,
Right.
across from a cloud, a Big Four, and I can't remember how I found out about this, but I found out that they had teens living in this building that were finding their way, and it was phenomenal work that they're doing. And we went and looked at this building. They gave us a tour. Why don't you come see what's going on?
Right.
Like, fantastic. These kids are living on their own. And when I say kids, they're probably 16, 17, 18. They're kind of on their own, right? Being supported by the family services. The units needed some refreshing, so we sent our team down and we refreshed. I can't remember. I think it was like 10 units, anywhere from faint from paint to some minor electrical work to some flooring work, maybe some new shelving, just to bring a little brightness to the apartment. That led to one of the most amazing experiences that we've had at Cedarglen. So at Christmas time, typically it happens at Christmas time, you have the Adopt a Family program.
Right.
Our team was so touched by the individuals and what they're trying to accomplish with their lives, that they came to me and said, Howard, instead of adopting a family, why don't we adopt a youth? Right? And so we took that initiative and we said, that's a great idea. How about we take it to our trades and suppliers and get them to help out? So we went to the organization, they went to the youth, and we said, listen, can you get a wish list from every child or every youth there, and send us a list for every child that's in that building.
So every young person. How
Every
many are we talking here?
So
Roughly.
if there was 10, I feel like there's more like 16
Okay.
people in there. And, we want the list, and then we went to our trades like, here's the story, right? And these youth kids, they need a
Of
break,
course. Yeah.
right? So here's our list. Can you help us out? Well, I think every single item on that list was purchased
Wow.
and delivered. And then they invited us to the Christmas dinner for the youth, a couple of us, to present the gifts, and said, hey, would you guys like to stay for dinner? And we said, absolutely, that sounds like a great idea. And we stayed for dinner, and they said, okay, now stay for the gift opening. We'd love you to be here as they open their gifts. Now, there was one boy that I watched open a gift. He opened it up. Sweater, hoodie, right?
Yeah.
Nice hoodie, new hoodie. To any other youth, nothing unusual about the hoodie.
Sure.
The boy starts crying. I start crying.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's. I mean, you're impacting 16 youth lives.
So I said to him, what's going on? Are you okay? He's like, you know what? I'm getting on a plane to visit my parents in a few days. I get to walk off that plane with a new sweater.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah, very touching. And those are the moments that I just carry and
Yeah.
I remember. And
You just don't forget it. It's still hitting you in the heart, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
forget those moments, right?
yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna go to one of my favorite. I call it one of my signature questions. And you're one of those guys that's worked his way up into the top job. And when you look back on your entire career, what's one thing you wish somebody would have told you when you were at the start of the journey? Because I'm sure we've got some listeners who are at the start of their journey, right? And what's that one, maybe even two, but what's that one thing that you wish somebody would have told you, Howard?
I'll change it a bit.
Okay.
I'll share with you what I wish someone didn't tell me.
Okay.
And maybe it was a good thing that this person told me this, because it fueled me. It fueled me for my career. It was, nice guys finish last.
How often have we heard that?
Yeah, I was deemed as a nice guy, and unless I was willing to slam my fist on the table, yell and scream to make people understand what I wanted, I was never going to win. So that fueled my career in the sense that that's not who I wanted to be. And nice guys do finish first.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure somebody out there needs to hear that right
Yeah.
now. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
They were wrong. And it fueled Howard, right? Like it gave you that
Yeah.
drive just to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And here you are sitting here decades later proving them wrong, right? And I hope they're listening. So I've been in your boardroom. I've seen everything you've got up in your boardroom, and you've got, so many concepts and strategies and, things that you do inside the organization that you've adopted over the years. So continuous learning and improvement is a huge part of Cedar Glen's culture.
Hmm.
So, again, for our listeners, what are sort of those things that you would recommend they do in that continuous learning? What's been helpful over the years? Whether it's, finding a framework or, I know crucial conversations is part of your values. It's become that important. But
Hmm.
you've got so many great things around that boardroom wall.
It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time, and you are thrown, as someone that is always learning. You're always coming across new concepts, new frameworks, and not all of them are gonna fit. But when you look around our boardroom there with all these frameworks, and when I say all, I think there's 5 of them on the walls.
Yeah.
You whittle them down to the most important ones, right? And none of these are original ideas. These are things I've picked up along the way. But I think the difference is bringing them back to the organization, sharing them, teaching them, but most importantly, keeping them alive. So quite often, as leaders, we go to seminars or speaker series, and in the moment, great content, fantastic. We feel inspired.
And then you get back and it goes on a shelf somewhere forgotten
Yeah,
about, right?
you get back to work, and it gets shelved, or for the next 3 months, you can see that printout on the corner of your desk.
Yeah.
Or you don't want to throw it out, but you don't know what to do with it, right? So, if it's important, framework, start sharing it and start bringing it alive, because when you're sitting there in that moment, you found value. You were inspired by something in what was shared. Keeping it alive is the key, and sharing it with your team and making sure that it's revisited and used.
Yeah, no, that I really like that, and as a business and executive coach, I mean, there's something I always share with my clients, when I'm working with them, which is, Japanese culture is actually, if you go to get a piece of learning or a piece of education, you go take a course, you are actually required to come back and share it with the team, because first of all, if you have to share it and teach it, you're going to reinforce what you learned,
Yeah.
and secondly, you're going to take great notes. Right, so now you're sure, you send one person, but maybe 10 people benefited from that, right?
Right,
So
right.
that's really what you're talking about, right? Instead of
Yeah.
the corner of the desk, you're sharing it with your team.
Yeah.
You're creating the framework and putting it on a wall in your boardroom, right?
Yes.
So people can look at it, use it, and continue to keep moving forward with it, so to speak.
Yeah.
I like that. You're not getting out of here because we're getting close to the end of time, but you're not getting out of here until we talk about, Howard's hacks. And so, Howard loves his IT. I mean, in his spare time, he loves AI, and he loves, always learning new things around, what's going on in technology. And so, I've heard him share some of his shortcuts or hacks, and I'm kind of wondering, do you have 1 or 2 shortcuts or things, around the computer piece that people could walk away and go, wow, I didn't know I could do that? What are a couple of those Howard's hacks?
One of my favorites is the scheduling poll in Microsoft Outlook. So when you schedule a meeting internally, you can pull up the individuals and see what their calendar looks like and find a slot, right? And when you're booking meetings externally, there's this endless loop of, well, how does Monday, Thursday, Friday
Yeah.
work? That doesn't work for me. And person 3, 4, and 5 say, well, how about these days? And it's this endless loop of,
We've all been there.
and you can't find a date.
Right.
And for all the golfers out there, how hard is it to find a golf date with some buddies?
Oh yeah, it's hard.
This is how it originated. I needed to find some golf dates with some buddies.
Wasn't even a work thing.
It wasn't even working, but I was playing, right? So I found the scheduling poll, which is an add-in in Microsoft Outlook, which
Is this on the mobile or on the desktop version?
on the desktop version.
Okay.
And I don't remember paying for it, so I'm pretty sure it's included. So if you have Outlook, you can probably add it in. But what you do is you you hit the ad in, it pulls up a little calendar on the side, shows all your availability, what's the length of the meeting, pop in a couple options, right? And then it creates a voting option for everyone. And you have your people that you want to invite,
Right.
and they go and vote, right? And I like to give no more than 3 options, or else it gets a little unruly. But that cuts down so much time in terms of the back and forth. Does this work? Does that work? Well, that doesn't work for me. So that's one of my favorite.
And then when they
tools.
like it, does the calendar actually book it for you?
Yeah. So when all the all the votes are in, let's say the 3 buddies have voted, and it says, okay, well, out of the 3 days, Tuesday works. Everyone's said Tuesday works.
Right.
Once the votes are in, it'll automatically close the voting and create a Outlook calendar event in my calendar and send out the invites to everyone.
Oh, that's excellent.
Automatic. So the only thing I needed to do was set up the scheduling poll, and then the rest of it was sort of taken care
All
of.
takes care of itself.
Yeah. So
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, not only did you give a whole bunch of business nuggets today, but now people know how to get more golf games going, right? So
Right.
It's fantastic. So, Howard, it's been, obviously great chatting with you. So thanks for joining me. And I know you gave, crucial, whether it's crucial conversations or, nice guys finish first. I mean, there were so many takeaways today. I mean, I feel like I should have taken notes, quite frankly. So thank you for that.
thank you, Oliver.
And so you've been listening to the Business in Calgary podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Basner, and Business Calgary podcast is powered by Sonic Coaching. Thanks, everyone. Till our next show.